Welcome back to the Bears Talk podcast. I am your host and the managing editor of BearsTalk.com, Brian Perez. And today's show, we're going to have a little bit of a different vibe than our last episode when we had a little bit of an instant reaction to the Chicago Bears' frustrating and upsetting loss in Week 1 to the Green Bay Packers. We've had a couple days now to let it sink in, to kind of recover from those instant wounds, the feeling of, oh, here we go again, another Packers quarterback who just has the Chicago Bears number. We were able to watch some of the tape, review some of the data, and we have some more things that we learned from that Week 1 game. And we're also going to start taking a sneak peek ahead at Week 2 and see exactly what the Bears could be facing in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which when the season schedule was announced, it looked like Week 2 was going to be an easy win for the Bears. Not so fast, my friend. The Minnesota Vikings found out the hard way that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't exactly a pushover. We'll take a quick overview of what that game could look like. Come on back. Let's have some Bears talk.
We're going to be an effort-based team.
Darnell being Darnell.
Love playing football.
Ready to open this thing up. Let them know that we're coming.
The Chicago Bears didn't exactly have the showing that we all hoped for in Week 1, but Bears fans, it wasn't maybe as bad as we initially thought. At least the most important player on the field, Justin Fields, wasn't atrocious. He wasn't terrible. Justin Fields was a victim of a really bad game plan by offensive coordinator Luke Getsy and some, relentless pass rush by the Green Bay Packers. But Justin Fields himself, he wasn't horrible. Now, if you take a quick spin around social media on X and you look at, as I predicted in our last episode, what some of the Bears beat writers are saying, there are criticisms about his processing speed, about him missing some downfield open receivers and instead taking the check down or breaking free from the chaos that was coming his way in the pocket. And I think what we saw in Justin Fields from Justin Fields in Week 1 was rust. I mean, I know that might be kind of minimizing or dismissing some of those opportunities that he didn't see or that he didn't hit, and it might be kind of like an easy or weak or cheap way to explain who's supposed to be a franchise quarterback and his poorer than expected outing. But I really do think that Justin Fields and some of the missed throws, some of the opportunities that he didn't take advantage of, I think that's all correctable. I don't think what we saw from Justin Fields in Week 1 was a cause for alarm or concern or raising the red flag that Justin Fields might eventually end up being called a bust in Chicago. I don't think that's the problem. I don't think Justin Fields is going to have a bad year after rewatching the tape. I think what's got to happen with Justin Fields is he has to just realize he has to not worry about what the outside opinions are. He can't be concerned with being, trying to be defined as a pocket passer and being something or someone that he's not. He cannot be, listen to the talking heads outside of Hallis Hall or even maybe inside of Hallis Hall, Luke Getsy, I'm looking at you, who are trying to force him to be someone he's not. Because I think what we saw in Week 1 was a hesitant Justin Fields, a Justin Fields who maybe didn't want to play toward his instincts. Not that he didn't want to, but he was almost forcing himself to stay within Luke Getsy's game plan, to stay within the structure of the offense, which, of course, good quarterbacks do that. But special quarterbacks make plays outside of structure. Special quarterbacks can take a system that obviously has rules and progressions and ideal targets downfield, your first read, your second read, and so on. The really special quarterbacks can turn any snap, any rep into that playground environment and just make a play. And that's what Justin Fields was doing toward the end of last season, which is why coming into the 2023 season, the hopes they were, and they still are so high for him. He was one of the favorite picks to be an MVP candidate this year. I think Justin Fields in week 1 was a very conservative, safe quarterback who did everything he could to effectuate Luke Getsy's game plan, which was a very conservative, almost cowardly approach toward attacking the Packers defense. There were some opportunities down the field that Justin Fields, as he continues to develop as a quarterback, as he watches film, as he goes through the weeks of development and the learning experience of seeing this on tape, Justin Fields will make those throws. We know Justin Fields can make those throws. He made one to Darnell Mooney for the touchdown, which was a phenomenal display of his quarterbacking IQ, just from seeing the field, reading the defense, making a great throw with touch and accuracy for a touchdown. That one play is what Bears fans need to hold on to, as this is what this guy can be, aside from his obvious rare athletic ability, escaping the pocket, moving the chains, and threatening a defense with a back-breaking, field-flipping play every time he carries the ball. He does have the high-level football IQ that's required from a quarterback to have success in the NFL. The problem is he has this anchor around his legs, which is Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy called such a conservative and weak game plan against the Green Bay Packers that relied too much on outside perimeter blocking from guys like Chase Claypool, who looks like anything but a player who's trying to earn a second contract with a team. Chase Claypool's performance against the Green Bay Packers is exhibit A for why the Bears should not give this guy a second contract. You can go on social media. There's some Bears fans and non-Bears fans who patched together some of Claypool's more embarrassing reps against the Packers. And I would challenge anyone to find a player on any team in the league in week 1 who had a more uninspiring performance than Chase Claypool against the Packers. It was shocking to me because I was one of those analysts who believed Chase Claypool would be battling with Darnell Mooney week after week to see who would win that battle for a second contract in Chicago. After 1 week, it's not even close. It's clear that Darnell Mooney has Justin Fields' trust, maybe even more than DJ Moore at this point, and it's clear that Darnell Mooney is that kind of player who the Bears can count on to give 100% effort on every single rep. Chase Claypool is not there. He's nowhere close to being there at this point. You're talking about a 6'4", 230-pound receiver who can run as well as any player in the game, and he doesn't even have a catch. The excuse of saying Chase Claypool is assimilating to the offense. He was traded at midseason last year. It's difficult for a wide receiver to be able to come in and make an impact right away after a midseason trade. Okay, that excuse worked for last year, but now, after last week's game, I mean, he looked exactly like the guy that the Bears acquired at midseason last year who didn't know the offense. And how is that still happening in week 1 of the 2023 season after a full off season of work with this offense? It suggests to me that Chase Claypool either can't comprehend the offense or is just simply not working hard enough to get to the point where running the routes and knowing your blocking assignments and putting in that extra effort on the field, he just doesn't have the want to. Perhaps he shows the want to in week 2 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I'd be shocked at this point if we see much dominance from Chase Claypool aside from maybe a fluky flash play from him from time to time. But when you start thinking about guys like Chase Claypool not being able to function in a system, or at least in a week 1 game plan, where he was relied on to make open field blocks on those perimeter wide receiver screens, tunnel screens, etc., and he whiffed. I mean, at some point, you have to look at the offensive coordinator and ask him, what are you doing? Like, why would you put this type of game plan in place against your division rival, put your quarterback in a position where he is only targeting his number one receiver, DJ Moore, two times in a 4-quarter game against your division rival, not taking any shots downfield, designed shots downfield, forcing plays downfield, forcing your quarterback to make the play downfield. Instead, all these perimeter throws, short checkdowns. I really believe that Justin Fields deserves some blame for how poor the offense looked, but he does not deserve to be criticized or questioned in terms of his long-term outlook or future as a quarterback in the league. Justin Fields was fine. In fact, I would say Justin Fields was taking completions. Justin Fields was taking checkdowns. If you talk to any established quarterback coach throughout the league, nobody is going to complain about completions. Nobody is going to complain about short completions. That said, you want to have a quarterback who can also connect on those 10-plus, 20-plus yard throws down the field. But the offense has to allow him to do it. And if you look back at the film in week 1, I don't believe the offense allowed Justin Fields to really take advantage of his complete array of skills. And that's on Luke Getsy. I put a post on X today that said, it's time to fire Luke Getsy. And I know that might be a hot take. I know that might be interpreted as a hot take. I know that might be interpreted as an extreme opinion after only one game. But is it really after only one game? We have a full season, a full body of work from Luke Getsy from last year. The offense was horrendous for most of the 2022 season. And let's be honest, the only reason why the Chicago Bears started scoring points in 2022 is because Justin Fields said, screw it. I'm just going to let what my God-given skills are, my God-given traits, I'm going to let those traits take over. I'm not going to sit here and rely on an offensive coordinator and a cast of skill players to score points anymore because it's just not working. I'm just going to be the guy that I've always been in high school and college. I'm going to be that guy now in the pros and just take over the game. And we saw Justin Fields do that over a stretch of 5 or 6 games in 2022 that was not a Luke Getsy success story. Luke Getsy did not put Justin Fields in the position to make the plays that we saw him make last year. That was Justin Fields playing off of instincts. And that's the Justin Fields that we need to see again in 2023. Justin Fields should be encouraged to run. Justin Fields should be encouraged to take shot plays down the field, even if they end up in the hands of the opposing team every now and then. It is what it is. Interceptions are the risk that you need to take in order to get the reward of a big play down the field. You got to let Justin Fields do his thing. Luke Getsy, I think, should be squarely on the hot seat. He should be sitting on that hot seat, and his rear end should be in flames at this point. I just don't understand what the allure is with Luke Getsy. You know, when I look at these offensive coordinators that get hired around the league, and a lot of their resume items, their high line resume items are based on what they've done with quarterbacks who really kind of don't need the quarterback coach or the coordinator. You know, like Adam Gase made his reputation by working with Peyton Manning. But like, how do you not succeed being Peyton Manning's coach? Peyton Manning is basically coaching you, right? And Luke Getsy was the quarterback coach and involved with the offense at the Green Bay Packers where Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback. And we saw how Nathaniel Hackett got a head coaching job because of basically the success he had with Aaron Rodgers. And look what happened when Hackett was the coach of the Broncos. They were one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL. Luke Getsy is not, I mean, are we sure Luke Getsy isn't just another Nathaniel Hackett? I mean, are we sure he's not just a guy whose reputation was inflated because he had the blessing, the absolute gift of working with a quarterback who is fail-proof? Of course you're going to look great as a coach when the guy you're coaching is really the first ballot Hall of Famer who you're learning more from him than he's learning from you. I think we're seeing pretty quickly in the Luke Getsy era that Aaron Rodgers is the common denominator of all the coaches that went through Green Bay, the offensive coordinators, the quarterback coaches. Aaron Rodgers was a big reason why those guys had success. And I don't think Luke Getsy is cut out for this job. And I don't really care if the Chicago Bears put up 25, 28 points on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next week. I think if they do that, we're going to see that it's the result of Justin Fields just playing his game. You know, when Justin Fields breaks the pocket and runs for 18 yards and picks up a first down, that's not Luke Getsy, folks. Luke Getsy's not the guy that made that happen. That wasn't a great play call by Luke Getsy. Sure, if we see some designed runs for Justin Fields, that's a play call by Getsy. We didn't see that against the Packers. And I think Luke Getsy has drilled in Justin Fields' head to try to become a pocket passer. And that is why Justin Fields' final stat line and why the talking heads on social media immediately attacked him. But going back to the tape and watching Justin Fields, I think there are reasons to calm down. There are reasons to stay optimistic and to hope he can recover and rebound in week 2 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All it's going to take is a nice, solid stat line in a winning effort from Justin Fields to get this train back on the track. And before the train leaves the station, I need all of you guys to go to your favorite podcast provider and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you rate and review the show. Make sure you tell your friends or family, all your fellow Bears fans, share this on social media. Make sure they are subscribed to the Bears Talk podcast. Leave a great rating and review. Follow us on social media everywhere, Facebook, X, Threads, whatever else is out there, we're there. Just find at the Bears Talk or Bears Talk and you'll find us. You know, while Justin Fields was pretty good against the Packers, he was solid, he was okay, he avoided the panic button. I'm not quite sure the same could be said about a guy like Gervon Dexter. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I watched the tape and I didn't see a player who profiles as like the Chris Jones, the next coming of Chris Jones for the Chicago Bears defense. I just didn't see that. I saw a player who flashed high effort plays from time to time, but who also looked a lot more like he was playing a quicksand than a dude who is blessed with this rare size, speed, strength combination. Now, some of those guys look great in a t-shirt and shorts and look great in the gym on the bench. And, you know, you put a basketball in their hands and they look like a freakish athlete. But when they're on the field between the white lines with the pads on, they start to look like they're moving in slow motion a little bit. And Gervon Dexter, to me, he kind of looked that way. I'm not too sure the Bears are going to really get what they hoped they would get from Dexter when they drafted him. I was more impressed with Zach Pickens and his performance in week 1 because he just looks more explosive to me. And that's the biggest thing. Like when I scout players, I scout players with one trait being more important than all the others, and that's juice. I need to see players flash NFL juice, meaning they're twitchy, they're quick, they have the ability to move at a rate of speed and explosiveness that is bigger or faster or stronger than their measurables might suggest. Zach Pickens, to me, was that guy, and his Pro Football Focus grade kind of reflects that. I mean, he only played 12 snaps against the Green Bay Packers, but he had the third highest grade for Bears defenders at a 75.6. That's pretty impressive for a rookie getting his first NFL action. Gervon Dexter, meanwhile, was much lower than that at a 56.9. Zach Pickens scored a 73.7, a respectable 73.7 in run defense. Gervon Dexter was a 58.2, and I think sometimes analytics and data can be a little misleading, but in this case, the tape matches those numbers. Gervon Dexter wasn't great. Gervon Dexter played 23 snaps, 17 were against the run, 6 were against the pass, and his pass rush grade of 51.7, that's not good. And the reason why his pass rush grade was a 55.4 for Gervon Dexter. Yannick Ngakoue, in fact, was the 51.7. Gervon Dexter, a 55.4 pass rush grade. The reason why it was so low is because he didn't get any penetration. He was just a non-factor. And I was kind of surprised because I thought Dexter, the kind of guy with his size and strength and speed profile, Gervon Dexter should have been a much more dominant player. He wasn't. I think that's a slight cause for concern. I think that's a bigger issue that Bears fans have to focus on is that when the Chicago Bears went second and third round picks on defensive linemen in an effort to upgrade the run defense, an effort to maybe get more of an interior pass rush, Gervon Dexter was one of the bigger guys that they're relying on to get that done. And in week 1 against the Packers, sorry, Bears fans, I didn't see it. And I didn't see it in the preseason. And I didn't see it on his tape at Florida. And this is something now that I'm going to circle as a must-watch every week is Gervon Dexter's development or the lack thereof. Because I know that some Bears analysts have said, and I think it's accurate, that the goal should be that they hit on one of these two guys, right? That the odds of hitting on every pick in the NFL draft are basically zero. If you can hit on 50% of your picks, you're a Hall of Fame general manager. So if you apply that theory to the defensive lineman that Ryan Poles drafted, the goal would be, the hope is that he hits on one of them. And I think Zach Pickens is trending based on training camp, preseason, and now the first game of the season. I think Zach Pickens has a better chance to ultimately be that guy than Gervon Dexter. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they both hit. But Zach Pickens, to me, has a better chance of becoming that guy. Another newcomer that the Chicago Bears rolled out in the starting lineup in week 1 was guard Nate Davis, who to me was a surprising target of criticism by both mainstream media and the data, the analytics. So this is where Pro Football Focus and their grades, to me, kind of missed the mark at least a little bit. I mean, Nate Davis was the 14th grade. So the Pro Football Focus graded 18 players on the Bears offense. As long as he took one snap, you got a grade from Pro Football Focus. For example, Robert Tonyan only played 4 reps. He got a grade, right? Nate Davis logged all 74 offensive snaps, and out of the 18 players that were graded, he had the 14th highest grade. So basically bottom 5. Nate Davis scored a 48.6 on Pro Football Focus's scale, which is essentially a failing grade. I mean, that's a replaceable player, potentially a guy that shouldn't even be in the league, right? That's what that number is. When you watch the tape of Nate Davis, I mean, where's the 48.6 coming from? What are they seeing? What am I missing? They have a 26.8 pass blocking grade, which is the lowest grade of any offensive lineman in any category for the Bears in week 1. Yes, Nate Davis did have some eye-popping whiffs in pass protection, but it wasn't like this plague that he dealt with throughout the entire game. Perhaps Pro Football Focus just banged him for how obvious and bad some of his misses were, and maybe it's, like on a sliding scale, the worse the rep looks, the more it impacts the final grade. But overall, I thought Nate Davis was actually one of the better linemen on the roster. So for him to get a 48.6 is somewhat shocking to me, and I think unfair. So I think Bears fans, when you're reading the criticism about Nate Davis and you're seeing fans or analysts or content creators or data guys and gals saying Nate Davis was a disappointment, I think you can kind of dismiss that and ignore it a little bit. That's an overreaction to Nate Davis's performance based on a couple of bad reps, but his overall body of work in week 1 on the 74 snaps he took, I don't think I counted more than maybe 4 or 5 that would be graded as bad. So Nate Davis was fine. I also think Darnell Wright, after rewatching the film, I see why Darnell Wright was, in fact, the highest graded player on the Bears offense for any offensive player who had over 20 snaps. So this is where it's hard with the data, right? This is where you don't want the data to fit your own narrative. You want the data to tell the truth. And with Nate Davis, I just don't think it tells the truth. I don't have an agenda with Nate Davis. I'm not hoping he's better than whatever he becomes, because you want to have an honest assessment of a player. But I do think the grade for Darnell Wright is accurate. I do think what they scored Darnell Wright is correct in terms of him being the second highest or the highest graded player on the Bears offense. He did also have some whiffs in pass protection, especially against Rashawn Gary, especially against when he faced that speed edge rusher. But Darnell Wright had a very encouraging first game as a Chicago Bear. He looked every bit like a bookend right tackle who the Bears are going to be able to rely on for a very long time. I think he was one of the brighter one of the better storylines to come out of a game that was really hard to find any bright spots. Darnell Wright was one of them. And I think even Braxton Jones, when I first watched the game and came out of that game annoyed, frustrated, and angry, Braxton Jones was a guy that I thought was just terrible, because obviously whenever an offensive tackle gets nailed with a bunch of penalties and the pass rush is constantly harassing Justin Fields, the left tackle's going to be like a target, right? He's the most high-profile offensive lineman for any team is usually the left tackle. And when that guy's, creating a lot of penalties, he had 3 penalties. He had the most penalties by far of anybody on the Chicago Bears. In fact, only one other player on offense had a penalty, and that was Lucas Patrick. Of course, he's going to take his fair share of criticism. But rewatching the film, Braxton Jones is a really unique film study because he doesn't have a great anchor. I mean, when you look at his body type, his profile, it's not hard to understand why. The scouting term of sand in the pants is about how big the player's butt and legs are. Braxton Jones has a skinny lower half. He doesn't have the traditional anchor that you want to see in a left tackle, and you see that come up in a lot of his reps where he can get bullied back by stronger edge rushers. And where he makes up for that is he has very good recovery, where Braxton Jones will get pushed back maybe a step or two, and it looks like he's about to lose the rep, and somehow he recovers, anchors, and holds off the pass rusher. He did that quite a bit against the Packers. In fact, Pro Football Focus gave him an 89.9 pass blocking grade, which anything at or above 90 is an elite score. So he was very close to being graded as an elite pass blocker against the Packers. And while I think that might be a little bit too high of a grade for him in terms of his actual on-field performance, I do think it's pretty close, because he was very, very solid against Green Bay's pass rush. So I think the Bears can come out of week 1 saying, all right, Justin Fields wasn't terrible. He wasn't atrocious. He was very conservative and was handicapped by the game plan. We need to see more development in him taking shots downfield, but it could have been a lot worse with him. And you know what? Our offensive tackles actually were pretty decent. They weren't bad. The interior offensive lineman, Cody Whitehair, was not good. He struggled. Lucas Patrick was not good. He struggled. That's where the offensive line really failed Justin Fields and the running game. It wasn't on the outside. And you know what? In my opinion, it's a lot easier to find guards and upgrade that position than it is offensive tackle. So hopefully Tevin Jenkins gets back healthy soon, and Cody Whitehair can go back to center, and the Bears can get back to the offensive line, the starting 5 that was projected to open up the year. They got to get through these growing pains. They got to make sure that they can keep Justin Fields upright, and perhaps Luke Getsy can open up the playbook a little more. But it's not as bad as we thought, Bears fans. And that's something that is important, that we kind of let that sink in. It's not as bad as it felt on Sunday night. And when you look around the league, I mean, Justin Fields wasn't the only quarterback who had problems. Joe Burrow threw the ball over 30 times for the Bengals in a rivalry game against the Browns. And he threw for just like 80 yards. Nobody is criticizing Joe Burrow. Nobody's questioning Joe Burrow because of one bad opener. And obviously, Joe Burrow has accomplished a lot more than Justin Fields so far in the NFL. So the slack he's given for one bad game is significantly greater than a player like Justin Fields, who still has to prove himself. But the point remains. Josh Allen was bad on Monday night. Lamar Jackson was very average. Deshaun Watson wasn't great. Patrick Mahomes was fine, but he wasn't like a superstar special performance on Thursday night opener. Players are rusty right now. The preseason and training camp rules have not allowed these guys to start the year at tip-top shape, sharp, and ready to go. So, unfortunately, I feel like week 1 is still an extension of the preseason, and you're going to see performances like we saw from the Bears, which looked way too conservative, rusty, and underprepared. That will change in week 2 on the defensive side of the ball too, hopefully, because when you talk about a conservative, rusty, underprepared performance, the Bears' defense is right there. Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator, I mean, let's go, man. The balls have to drop eventually, and you got to start blitzing the opposing quarterback. The Bears had either the lowest or second lowest pass rush, the pressure rate in the league in week 1. And it wasn't hard. You don't need data to tell you that. You don't need the numbers to tell you that. It was obvious. I mean, the Bears actually gave Jordan Love every opportunity he needed to have a great debut. If you're not going to blitz a young quarterback and you're going to let him sit in the pocket and go through the first, the second, the third, even the fourth read in his progression, of course he's going to find an open receiver. The Bears don't have the kind of pass rushers outside of Yannick Ngakoue to make up for that. There's not going to be a lot of one-on-one battles that the Bears went up front. So that's now on Alan Williams to scheme up the pressure. With the stunts and the blitzes, you have to make up for what might be average talent up front. So really, I think the storyline after reviewing the tape, it's not so much about, banging the drum about the Bears not having the talent or that the quarterback is not who we thought or hope he is. It's about the offensive and defensive coordinator, guys. I mean, coaches have to coach. They got to step up and put players in the best position to showcase their skills. Getsy and even Alan Williams did not do that. And at some point, Matt Eberflus, he has to take control of this. He has to identify the problem, and he has to take, the hardest part for a head coach is looking at the coordinators you hired and telling them, I'm taking this responsibility away from you. He might have to do that to Alan Williams. He might have to tell Luke Getsy, we need more cooks in the kitchen when it comes to the offense. Is it too early to make that drastic of a call? Perhaps, but I think we could be seeing that very soon. And maybe, perhaps, as soon as week 3, if the Bears don't get the job done in week 2. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 1-0, and they're at home. The Bears are traveling to Tampa Bay next week, and they're going up a team that ranks in the following categories. On offense, they scored 20 points against the Vikings. That's 15th in the league. They threw for 169 yards. That's 19th. They ran for 73 yards. That ranks 25th. They only allowed 1 sack. They did not have any turnovers. That's number 1 in the league for both of those categories. So the Packers' offense is not bad. Baker Mayfield was not terrible. In fact, Baker Mayfield was the highest graded player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense in week 1. He had an 80.8 Pro Football Focus grade. That's pretty darn good for a guy that seemed like he was washed and that he was going to settle in at some point as an NFL backup. Baker Mayfield suddenly is connecting with guys like Mike Evans, and that's going to be a problem for the Bears if Alan Williams doesn't, grow a pair and start attacking Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a mistake-prone player, but you have to pressure him. Alan Williams, let's go, dude. It's not rocket science. You just let Jordan Love slice and dice you. If you go back-to-back weeks and you have Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield picking apart your defense, it's time to look in the mirror, and the Bears have to make a tough decision at that point because there's no excuses. Not with that secondary, not with the investment in Yannick Ngakoue, not with the second-level defenders like Tremaine Edmonds. You can't allow that to happen. And if it does happen, it's because the players aren't being put in a position to thrive. On the other side of the ball, the Buccaneers defense gave up 17 points. They gave up 328 yards. That 328 passing yard mark is 30th in the NFL, so it was second worst in the league last week. And they only gave up 41 yards rushing. So clearly the Vikings attacked them through the air, and they didn't have much of a ground game going. The Bears are the exact opposite of that when it comes to their offensive philosophy. They run the ball and they pass in a conservative fashion, but maybe there will be an opportunity for the Chicago Bears to unleash Justin Fields and DJ Moore in this game. They gave up 2 passing touchdowns last week. They sacked Kirk Cousins twice. They were able to intercept him as well. And the Buccaneers did force 2 fumbles. They recovered 2 fumbles, which was the most in the league in week 1. So the snapshot of the Bucs, Baker Mayfield, he was the highest graded player on Pro Football Focus's scoring. Tristan Wirfs, the left tackle, was the second highest. So for a Bears team that can't rush the passer, and now they're going up against one of the game's best left tackles and a quarterback who has some moxie and can make plays downfield, buckle up, Bears fans. This could be a situation where you're forced to sit through another 4-quarter game saying, how the hell is this happening? How the hell is Baker Mayfield moving the ball against this defense? we know that if that happens, the Chicago media, the Bears drop to 0-2 with Kansas City around the corner in week 3 and staring down the barrel of 0-3 and almost being eliminated from the playoffs before the calendar even turns to October, the coaching staff is like an ant under a magnifying glass with the summer blazing through it on a hot summer day. It's going to just buckle your chin strap. On the other side of the ball, the Buccaneers defense, Devin White was their highest scoring player. No shock there. The middle linebacker had an elite 90.7 grade. Defensive lineman Vita Vea, he was a stud. Shaq Barrett, he was a stud. Bears are going to have their hands full. Offensive line is going to have to bring their hard hats on Sunday against a team that has talent on both sides of the ball. Maybe it should be no surprise that they beat the Vikings. This is going to be a tough game for the Bears on the road. What we learned from watching tape in week 1 is that Justin Fields will be able to move the ball if Luke Getsy gets out of his way. And perhaps the defense can rattle Baker Mayfield if Allen Williams gets out of their way. So circle those two names, Bears fans. That's what we have to get ready to pay attention to in week 2. It's time to move off the players and move on to the coaches. Ryan Poles leveled up this roster last offseason. He made a big investment in better players on both sides of the ball. Now it's on the coaches to make sure it works. And when we go back and you watch the tape, I want you guys to watch the tape. Hit me up on X, at Brian Perez NFL, at the Bears Talk. Comment, leave your comments on Apple Podcasts. I'll read all of them. Go over to YouTube, where this podcast will be listed as a video there. Comment there. If you watch the All 22, let me know what you think. Am I crazy? Am I absolutely insane? Am I just searching for reasons to be optimistic about Justin Fields? I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say that I'm right. Nobody's the smartest guy in the room, certainly not me. Perhaps you see something that I'm not seeing. But I think it's time to really pay attention to this coaching staff, because one of the easiest ways to kill a quarterback, to sink a young quarterback, is to surround him with coaches who don't know what they're doing. And I don't want to say we're totally there yet, but we're getting closer to that point. Bears fans, go to your favorite podcast provider. Make sure you're rating, you're reviewing, you're subscribing, you're sharing this podcast with everyone that you know on social media who is a Bears fan. We will be back with another show this week previewing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Week 2 game. It is a must-win game for this Chicago Bears team for the 2023 season. We don't want to feel that way in Week 2. We would love to have been coming off a huge rivalry week victory over the Green Bay Packers, but here we are. Week 2 must win against Baker Mayfield. If Baker Mayfield beats the Bears, and then they got to stare down the barrel of Patrick Mahomes in week 3, are we really entering that territory already after months of anticipation and excitement about this team? Are we really already worrying about Baker Mayfield? Bears fans, we're going to get through it all together on Bears Talk. Make sure, again, you like, you subscribe, you rate, review, and bear down.